I'm Paula Eddie Wilcox, and welcome to this episode of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at the leadership journey of our guest and what unique traits bring them to be the leader they are today. Who knows what we're going to discover together, so I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome to today's episode of Game of Leadership, and I am absolutely chuffed to bits is the right way to say it, to be joined by Jodie Salt, aka Jodes, founder of the Woman Up Society and #1 bestselling author of Woman Up, and you can see that in the background there.
Oh, yeah, you got me a big one.
Yeah, your big one, your big book. Yeah, I bet you have fun reading that because it's so massive. You have to turn the pages. Brilliant. I think we've known each other for about 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And I think it's safe to say we hit it off from the start. You've become an awesome friend and part of my life, and it's an absolute honour to have you with us today.
Oh, ditto, though.
Yeah, well, thanks. And I just love your no-nonsense approach to life, and the way that you support women to rise up and show up as their best selves. It's incredible, the work that you do. And let me just read this little bit so that everybody gets a real feel for who you are, Jodie, and what it is that you do and the magic that you deliver. So with over 2 decades of leadership and coaching experience in the corporate world, Jodes is an assertiveness coach for women, helping them to smash glass ceilings, navigate the boys' club mentality, and grow their credibility and influence. She helps women rediscover their true identity, find their voice, step into their own authentic space, and figure out what they want and go out and get it. And I would add to that, on their own terms.
Yeah. There you go. Now the front of the book's ruined, isn't it? Have to adjust the right front of the book. Yeah. You are absolutely right, Paula. Thank you.
Not at all. I mean, we all have different ways and words that we choose to describe these things, but you are incredible. Welcome to the Game of Leadership podcast. I'm absolutely delighted that you wanted to come and help me get curious together about leadership.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you didn't have to ask twice.
Brilliant. Well, today, so let me just set the scene a little bit for everybody listening and watching. We've got Jodes for 3 episodes. We're really, really lucky. She's agreed to do a little mini series of 3 for us. So today we're going to be looking at Jodes' leadership story and hearing all about that. Second episode that we do together, we're going to have a look at the game side of leadership. Mm-hmm. And third episode we do together, we're going to look at those pivotal moments that make Jodes who she is. Now, I have today's big question for you, Jodes. What is your leadership story? How did you get to be where you are today? And I'm itching to know, well, I know, but do the listeners know who's Violet?
Oh, I love it when people ask me that question. I really, really do. So I'll come on to that bit in a second. So my leadership story is a story of just complete flukes and accidents, which sounds like you're playing it down, but actually, I love that about my leadership story, that it's almost been allowed to take its own course. None of it was forced. None of it was manufactured. You could almost say, I let the universe decide, but I would usually claim I'm not that woo-woo to believe that the universe would do anything for me, but let's let it go today. So yes, I'm going to go right back to being 16, if that's okay, Paula.
Absolutely.
I could go back a little bit further, but I was one of those young girls that was fiercely independent. I think I drove my mum around the twist most of the time. I think even as a 3-year-old, I wouldn't let anybody do anything for me. I wanted to fasten my own coat. Didn't want anybody else to fasten my own coat for me. My latter teenage years, I just wanted to be fiercely independent. And the way that manifested itself was in wanting to earn my own money. I was a clever girl. I was lucky that I was born with a good set of brain cells, which meant, might be annoying for some, I didn't have to really apply myself that hard at school and still do okay. I could have been a straight A student if I wanted, but didn't want to. Good is good enough. And it's a phrase and a motto that I've lived by for the rest of my life, actually. And now attach it to a bake-off analogy. Here's a little one for anybody. The way to do well in life is apply the bake-off principle. And all it is all you have to do to win in bake-off is not come last.
Yeah.
If we can, you don't come last, you will win. So it's a similar kind of principle, but got off on a tangent already, haven't I? But yes, so I wanted to earn money. So I didn't go to university like my friends, didn't even go on to college. At 16, I went straight out into the world of work and wanted to get a job. So my first job was as a doctor's receptionist.
Sounds very official.
Best job I ever had. It was the most disposable income, even to this day, I've ever had, because I was 16 in 1995, earning £10,000 a year.
Wow.
That's like crackers to think about now. I was loaded. But anyway, it was a 12-month contract. Couldn't keep me on after it. So then I started jumping from call centre job to call centre job. Right? Because all that mattered to me at that point was, do I have enough money to go out on a Saturday night?
Yeah.
But it was in one of those call centre jobs that I had a team leader at the time who I clicked with. I got along really well with her, but she really believed in me, more so than I believed in myself. And she kept saying, you could have some real great opportunities in here. And I'd be like, oh, shut up. Anyway, a job came up in the training department. Right. And she was like, you know what? You flew into this job. You're dead good at it. And you'd be brilliant at teaching the new people what to do. Why don't you go and do it? So I was like, oh, for God's sake, okay, fine, I'll do it. Applied for the job, got it. When you go for jobs and you're like, I'm not really bothered either way, and I'm probably not going to get it anyway, but just to keep the peace, I'll do it. And then you get the job and you're like, oh God, what am I supposed to do now? But yeah, I fell into that. I actually really loved it. Now, the leadership link to this is that very, very quickly. So I was kind of 17, just turning 18 while I was doing that. Did it till I was like 19. And then just before my 20th birthday, the training manager role became available. And I think at that age, when you've kind of got no fear, have you? No. So, and you believe that you're flipping brilliant at everything. I wish I still had. Wish I could have bottled that at that age and carried on drinking it all my life. But I thought I could do that job. I'm applying for it, and I got it. And that was my first leadership role at the age of 20, leading a training team. So I had 7 permanent trainers and 7 what at the time we called stand-in trainers. That's a bit of a rude phrase, actually, isn't it? Imagine being a stand-in trainer. They were more that, they had a job in the call centre and they helped us out with training when we were busy. And when we weren't busy, they go back there.
We could say understudies.
Understudy, that's a better job title, isn't it? But I flew in this job, grabbed it with both by the horns, got stuck in. Look back now though, Paula, and I was absolutely shocking. I've said many a time over the last decade or so that whoever gave me that job, actually, obviously I do know who gave me that job. I must drop him a line at some point and say, what an absolute plonker you were giving me that job. But anyway, I've spent my leadership career in L&D, in learning and development, running training teams, and throughout the early years of having my children, I kind of moved from job to job. Same role, different organisation. Got a bit of breadth to my experience. And then I settled eventually in the world of telecoms in O2. And that just felt like it was the most wonderful place to work. It really, really was. And that was the place where I felt like I really grew as a leader. I earned my stripes there. It was a fantastic organisation to develop in. It was young, it was fresh, it was innovative. It was in its early kind of days of being an organisation that was separate from BT Cellnet. So we worked hard, but we also played hard. Week in, week out, really, we'd be off to awards dues, black tie dinners, either hosting events, presenting events, or winning them ourselves. So very interesting time where I got to meet lots of inspiring leaders around me, some really not so inspiring leaders that still teach you lots of lessons, right?
Absolutely. We learn as much from those experiences as we do from the good ones, sometimes a bit more.
Yeah, definitely. And it was a roller coaster ride, rocky at times, with plenty of highs and lows that really, let's say, they were character defining. So quite a linear leadership story in terms of always kind of being in the same industry of L&D and training, but moving from kind of organisation to organisation. And then a point came, Paula, where I'd become passionate about learning. I enjoyed teaching and training and coaching other people. And after a few years of leading training teams, I think I was about 26, 27 by this point. And all of a sudden I thought, I've lost the joy that I found in, and the passion for what I did. It was almost as if I could be leading any team. I was a manager of people. And I'd lost my connection with the world of learning, coaching, development. Although I was responsible for the development and the coaching of my own team, I was itching to get back into kind of the classroom. So I made a shift and I moved out of leading the kind of operational L&D team. I moved into leadership development as a consultant, qualified as an executive coach at that point. That's what really then relit the fire in my belly. Because actually then I had the two things together. I was back in learning. I was qualified as an executive coach. So I had this amazing new toolkit available to me. And I was still having conversations about leadership. And it was the leadership bit that meant a lot to me. So from that point on, I've never led another team again. I spent a few years kind of coaching mid to senior level leaders across that organisation. And then I got the opportunity to, get my own wings, I suppose, the opportunity to go freelance. And, I guess it had been like that. One of those dreams that I never said out loud to anybody. But that, if I was daydreaming or was stuck in traffic, I always kind of dreamt about working for myself one day and having my own clients and doing that kind of thing. And so all of a sudden, the opportunity was right in front of me. And so I took it. And that was 11 years ago. And I've kind of never looked back. What that's allowed me to do, though, is remain in the space of corporate leadership for some organisations. So I keep my hand in with what's hot and what's not when it comes to thought leadership. And but what it also gives me the platform to do now, as you introduced me, I spend most of my time, because it's what I care about most, working with women, predominantly in senior leadership positions, who are, having a bit of a tough time there, either not having a voice, not having enough influence, not getting a seat at the table, as you mentioned, struggling with that glass ceiling piece. So perfect combination for me. So that's in a nutshell. I'm sure we'll delve into a few bits of that, but in a nutshell, that's the broad journey that my leadership journey has taken.
Oh, that's amazing. And it's so interesting that you just said, it sounds a little bit linear, but it is funny because as human beings, we're pretty messy, aren't we? Right?
Yeah.
We don't go along this path that's dead straight and flat. We end up in peaks and troughs that all of differing heights and differing below sea level, if you like, and above sea level. And it just takes on it a life of its own. And when you said about I can't remember your exact words, Jodes, so forgive me here, but when you said about almost winging it, it kind of had a mind of its own, this journey that you hadn't really necessarily planned it out. I completely get you on that. That's really my kind of journey as well, apart from much later when it was much more intentional. But I think I was in my 40s before that happened. And without giving away too much, I'm almost on my way out the 40s, so it took a long time of being in positions of leading teams, etc. And like you, leading a team stupidly young. And yes, I ought to look up.
I was rubbish.
The gent that gave me that.
I cringe, Paula. I cringe. And I've met a few of my old team since and been hugely apologetic. Interestingly, though, I met one of my old colleagues at a christening a number of years ago. We were reminiscing, and that was all lovely. And she told me something that felt like just a huge stab in the heart. She'd had a few to drink, so I think her lips had got a little bit loose.
Okay.
But she said to me, she was like, "Oh yeah, but everybody knew, Jodie, that the only reason you got that job is because you were the bit of office totty. You had big boobs and a lovely bum and a pretty face, and everybody knew." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "Because was I the only one then that didn't know? I thought I'd gotten into that job because I was the right person for the job on my own merit, because I had the right skills and behaviors to do that job." So that felt a little bit of a stab in the gut, felt a bit winded. And you know what? There might be sod all truth in that, but it sounds like a few people were thinking it, if nothing else, and it hadn't ever even crossed my mind.
Well, the one truth that I choose to take from that is you are beautiful. You are the bit of totty in the room. So I would take that from it, a little bit of compliment. But by the by, you wouldn't have been given the position if you couldn't have proved that you'd do the job, because at the end of the day, the recruiting person would have had terrible egg on their face if you'd turned up and made a complete mess of it. There has to be some accountability here. Now, I'm saying this knowing what it was like being in those sorts of environments back in the early 90s when you and I, well, I'm a bit older than you, but when we entered the workplace, there wasn't the awareness. And as you beautifully put in your sort of spiel that I shared earlier about that sort of boys club mentality was still so prevalent then. And I mean, people coming into the workplace now, women especially, think they can see that now. We've witnessed it years ago and seen the small steps.
I wouldn't tolerate it now. I would not tolerate it, and I'd see it. I'd see it in an instant, and I'd be all over it. If I think back to then, I didn't even know it was there. It was because it was that normal.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just the way things were. It didn't even feel like it was a thing. But I know what you say. Maybe I wasn't very good at that job, so I actually do. I think there is something in what was said, and that really upsets me. And I'll tell you why. You know why? It's because I don't place any value at all on what I look like. I place all my value into the contribution and the value that I can bring. So I know you're saying it's a lovely compliment anyway, but I kind of want to screw that compliment up and chuck it.
I totally get that. I totally get that. Because it should never be about how you look. It's the value that you bring, what you bring, personality, abilities, skills, competencies, whatever way you want to package it up.
Yeah.
It's that package of the brain that you want to bring to the table.
Yeah. Yeah. So I experienced so much sexist behavior, but at the time didn't know that that's what it was. Only since I've developed and moved further into this field that I can look back with hindsight and kind of be astounded at what was acceptable and the types of hoops that I jumped through and the things that were expected of me, the way that I was spoken to or how I was spoken about, that I just find, shocking to reflect back on. But, it formed a big part of my leadership story. And I think absolutely shaped me into who I am today. So, it's kind of say that with no regrets in a way, because I wouldn't be necessarily doing what I do now if all of those things hadn't have happened.
Yeah, I'm a real believer in that, Jodes. As cheesy as it sounds, I don't care. Without the experiences that we go through in life and all the craziness and messiness of that, as we've already alluded to, we would not be sitting here having this chat, for example. We would never
wouldn't know each other.
Exactly. Wouldn't have met, and we'd all be on very different paths. So I absolutely agree that we have to go through these things to get to where we are now.
Definitely.
And the fantastic things that you do in the way that you coach women to open their eyes to what's going on. And most of us sort of have that the hairs go up on the back of your neck when something's not right and something a bit cringy happens or whatever. You bring it into the light and make it okay for them to talk about it.
And
that is the magic.
About knowing how to bring it up. That's obviously often the biggest blocker is, like you say, women have the intuition. They know that something's not right. These days, they can even be specific about what it is that's not right. But the confidence isn't there necessarily to address it. For a couple of reasons. For fear of reprisal, what might happen by causing a fuss. That's one of the stories we're often fed as a small girl is, don't make a fuss. Sit down, don't make a fuss. So we don't make fusses. And equally, there's a real skill and sets of behaviours that enable you to address these things credibly. What I end up with is women in front of me that have been given the badge that says, oh, you're too emotional in work, go and get some help. So they come to me saying, I'm getting feedback saying I'm too emotional. And actually, when we do a little bit of work, I don't even mean a big transformation, a little bit of work, they're able to address the same things, but do so, manage themselves in a way just slightly differently, which means they're able to lose that false label because they're not too emotional. Lose that false label, but still be able to address the things that they want to address. And that's very liberating.
Extremely. Now, of course, we will have all the details either below the video or in the information with the podcast so that people can reach out to you, women can reach out to you if they like what they're hearing today, Jodes, about your journey to where you are now and almost why you do what you do. And I would really, really love that for you if somebody says they've heard you, they like what they hear, and they want to work with you. So what sort of ways do you work with women? Do you have packages that you do, or how does it work?
So you know what, there's a bit of something for everybody, both in terms of where you're at in your life. I'm not even just going to say career, in life. And also what you've got at your fingertips in terms of sort of disposable income to spend on yourself. I'm a huge advocate of women investing in their personal development as much as we invest in our appearance.
Mm-hmm.
So we all think about how much we spend on our hair, our nails, our makeup, our clothes, our shoes, our handbags, any lotions and potions, any other aesthetic treatments. We'll just call them for now. Do you? I mean, I'm absolutely fine with all of that.
Yes.
Providing we place as much importance, equal importance on investing in ourselves from a personal development point of view. So it goes from really accessible, you can buy the book. The book will help you massively. It's a great way to start. And you know what? Decide if you like me, first and foremost. Not for everybody. I don't try to be for everybody.
No.
And I'll help you not to feel like you need to be for everybody. We've got the membership. So a wonderful, wonderful community of amazingly supportive, like-minded women where they've got access to. So I've got an app. So the membership operates out of the app. And it's basically like the Netflix for personal development for women. Yeah. So it's got a huge amount of resources, pre-recorded modules, masterclasses, downloads, all kinds of things in there. And then obviously we connect in the community as well. And then I've got courses. So if you think, right, I want to take myself on this little transformation journey, then I run my program called the Woman Up Way, which is you can do it yourself, kind of self-led version of it. Or if you've got a bit more to spare, you can come on a live program with me over the course of 6 weeks. And then, of course, if you're ready for a bit of high-end luxury, spend some time with me. Then there are one-to-one coaching packages, or there's always my retreats.
Yes.
Which Paula knows all too well about.
Well, yes. So let me just tell all of you that, no matter what way you're taking in this podcast, I've been on one of the retreats. I am a member of the Women Up Society. And let me just tell you, if you're not in it, why not? What are you doing? You're missing out hugely. And as Jodie says, buy the book, see if you like what you're hearing. Because let me tell you also, when you read the book, it's like listening to Jodie speak. And that's my favorite bit about your book, because it's just like having you in the room with me and having a chat. And just to prove to everybody, I've got all my tabs in here at the top, and so
I even have tabs in my own version of it.
See, there we go. Well, we're all too organised.
I even have notes to self.
An old boss of mine got me this little set of post-it notes, and they were all different versions of "I'm so flipping organised" and things like that I could use as tabs.
You're gonna love this. This isn't fair for the people who are on podcast version, but yeah, I've got these ones.
Oh, look. So me for the win.
Note to awesome self.
Yes. I love those, Jodes.
That's how like-minded we are, aren't we? We love all the gear, and we have got an idea.
I was just going to say, and not no idea. We've definitely got an idea.
Yeah. Only when we go on hiking trips, we've got no idea.
Yes. So we've done some awesome stuff together, and to open up. Well, the Women Up Society is open, but just to give that a huge shout out here for anybody that's interested in getting involved. The details to connect with Jodie will be in the details of the podcast, and we can do that. But there's one question you didn't answer, Jodes.
I saved it to the last. You've just reminded me.
There we go.
That's really spooky, because it had literally just popped in my head.
There we go.
Who is Violet? Right. Well, the book tells you who Violet is, but fundamentally, Violet is my alter ego. Okay. And she is the 4-year-old version of me. Paul has seen it. There is a photograph of me at 4 years old that, for me, this image totally encompasses the true, pure, authentic, untouched version of me. Before any societal expectations, norms, before I was tainted by the world. That sounds a bit dramatic, doesn't it? But before I had any limiting beliefs, it's when I believed that I could achieve anything, you know, the world was full of opportunity. I was fearless, all of that wonderful stuff. And so as a grown-up who has, like anybody else, developed a number of limiting beliefs or whatnot, you know, my narrative has been influenced by many things.
Yeah.
When I'm faced with a challenging time or a big decision or anything like that, then the most powerful coaching question I can ask myself is, what would Violet do?
Yeah.
And I asked my 4-year-old self, and she'll always, you know what answer she's going to give me, right? It happened this morning. Went for my horse riding lesson this morning, and I was nervous. I was really nervous. I was in the car and I was kind of like, I don't even want to go. Shall I just go home and cancel it, even though I'll have to pay for it at this late stage? I was almost ready to not do it.
Yeah.
And I had to go to Violet and be kind of like, come on. Get a grip. This is going to be exciting. Have a lovely time. Stop judging yourself. Just get on the flipping horse and have a lovely time. And I did.
Aww.
And guess what? It was absolutely lovely. It was fine. We had a great lesson.
Brilliant. And just remind me, Jodes, why are you learning to horse ride again, or reminding yourself? Because I know you did it a long time ago.
Well, but one, because I always like to keep learning. It's one of my human needs, growth. But specifically, talking of retreats, it was 7 weeks yesterday, I think. 7 weeks. All you get excited. Time, me and a group of wonderful women are off on a retreat to Santorini. And as part of that retreat, we have a beach horse riding trek experience to go on, and I wanted to be able to ride independently to do that experience. You know, I want to be able to canter along the shoreline by myself. So but that also says to me I've now only got 6 lessons left before I go, doesn't it? Better get me skates on.
Yeah, and for those of you that are on audio with this, Jodes has got lovely long hair, so that'll be flowing in the wind as she canters along the beach. It'll be fantastic. Well, look,
until I fall off in the sea, and then I'll look like a drowned rat, and everyone will laugh.
I think we're already proving that you and I could talk all day. Definitely. But thank you so much for sharing your leadership story that's led you to where you are today. Cannot wait to talk to you again next week, where we're going to be looking at the sort of game side of leadership. And I know you're quite inventive and creative, so I'm looking forward to whatever we're going to do next week, because it's always a surprise for me, whatever you're going to bring. And then obviously we've got the third episode as well, where we'll be looking at your pivotal moments. So thank you so much, Jodes, for today. It's been fantastic. And, you know, the more I hear, the more I love, as always. So I will talk to you again soon. Thank you for listening to this episode of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. Why don't you now take a moment to reflect on what you've heard and see what resonates for you? You never know, there may be some golden nuggets in there that really make sense to you and you'd like to apply in your leadership. Who knows what's possible? We all bring that different uniqueness to the way that we lead ourselves in all walks of our lives. I'm Paula Eddy Wilcox, and I really look forward to seeing you next time on Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. Bye for now.